And we're rolling.
Excellent. And we're up and running. Welcome into Unscripted. This is Tim Lindsay. We've got Aaron McLaughlin, and we have Chad Dorman joining us from Leonard Andrew Consulting. We're going to talk about COVID. We're going to talk about college admissions. We're going to talk about student athletes, and we're going to talk about the fact that Chad and I are nervous that the rest of today might not be enough time to talk about all the things we're going to talk about, but we're going to welcome in anyway. Chad, thank you for joining us. We both, as parents of short people, even though our short people are getting taller than us, we have questions as we are raising student athletes. I guess first and foremost, we'd love to find out, how did you land in this? What drew you into this industry? And bring us up to speed on you. Like, what's your background? Where did you grow up?
Story.
And talk about where you went to school. Talk about what you played for sports and how this became a passion for you.
So I went to Norton Elementary School. Start way back. No,
love it. Yeah, do it. Go ahead. There'll be a quiz at the end, kids. Yeah.
Tim, Aaron, thank you guys for having me. And my story is kind of all over the place. It's a winding one, but it's one that certainly I wouldn't trade for anything on the one hand. And on the other hand, pretty much every stop that I had along the way created LAC, created this kind of network and this ecosystem, this machine that we have in place now. And it's kind of funny how organic and how well everything fit together in the end, or at current. But I kind of a teacher my whole life, in education my whole life. I'm the oldest of four. Kind of came with the territory, and the youngest in our family is a 10-year difference from myself and I.
So my helping.
A lot of helping.
So your parents are maniacs. Keep going. Yep.
No, I love them. God bless them. I don't think
10-year spread. They're patient.
They were very calculated, actually, incredibly calculated. There's like 2.5 to 3.5 years between each of us.
Yes.
Wow, that's
so
impressive.
I don't know.
Freshman to senior. Yes.
So like mom and dad, if you see this, you guys can confirm whether or not you had it like calculated and drawn out. Like, all right, here we go. But that's
it's go time.
They're like, honey, when we talk to Chad, use the word calculated because he gave us credit. Yeah.
So always was in that world. Played sports growing up, played hockey, played baseball, tried a bunch of different things actually growing up, and ended up going to a prep school, going to a boarding school. The gun school in Washington, Connecticut, loved it. Traditional boarding school. I repeated my junior year there, so I had a nice solid 2 years to really get in, understand what the experience was all about, learn kind of what life was independently on your own, and being challenged academically, being challenged with the athletics. And it was such a kick in the pants for me that it really helped me to not only take these next steps in my own life, even a conversation much like this, I was in a shell. I would have never been able to speak up and communicate, even as simple as this seems. But the other thing was I loved it so much that I was like, that's what I want to do. That's where I need to be.
Awesome.
That's my world. And so, as a high school student, to kind of have that realization, sure, didn't know what it was going to be. Coach, dorm parent, teach. At prep school, it's kind of all of the above, right? They kind of check all the boxes.
No privacy ever again.
No, certainly not. That's a whole other podcast in and of itself. God bless all of them as well, while we're just handing out blessings. And I was like, that was kind of it. And went to college, went to University of Vermont, was a hockey player, got hurt, so I couldn't play past my senior year of high school anyway, which was a gift and a curse. Ended up working around the hockey teams, ended up doing a lot with communications. The school had a television channel, and just kind of, on the one hand, from a sports aspect, always stayed close that way. And on the education side, I majored in education and minored in English and writing and creative writing and all that stuff. So that was always the path. After that, and then I made the comment about you being in Concord, I went to law school at Franklin Pierce Law Center, which is now the University of New Hampshire.
Yes. Yeah.
I went for a year,
Yeah.
was more than enough. I actually saw an old law school friend of mine just the other day, but it was, I mean, 1L year, you're running the gauntlet. And what I knew very quickly was, I'm not going to swear on the podcast. I don't know if I can or not, but holy crap, this
you
isn't
can
for
whack
me.
the puck around the board. That's fine. We'll probably swear at the end for sure.
Okay, great.
Just for good
They're
measure.
just words.
Yeah.
Holy shit, I don't think this was for me. And really, because I went from Shakespeare and doing those types of English papers to reading Clifford the Big Red Dog and teaching little guys and girls how to write in cursive, which is out the window now anyway. So then to jump to Civ Pro and torts and all that stuff, it was like, Frogger, just running out into the highway and trying not to get splatted. At the end of that 1L year, because you have an advisor, and they were very polite, but it also was kind of pulled the rug out from under me. And it was like, all right, we don't think this is for you.
Wow.
And again, very polite. And it wasn't like you're done here, see ya, but it was go home this summer, think about it, see if this is really what you want to do. That, and I have no problem saying it, because again, it all runs into the bigger picture. But of the 9 grades I think we got that year, it was like B's and C's, which was meh. But I got 1A in like the public speaking course, when you'd be talking to a jury, you'd be talking to the judges, you'd be talking to other lawyers, and that whole mock situation. So I was like, all right, well, that was an experience.
I'm good at talking.
Yeah.
Came back to right.
Yeah.
Which works for podcasts and works for what I do now, and speaking with schools and kids and all that. It really, that part flowed into it. And it's surprising to me too how much of the contractual stuff, how much of the nuance to legalities of things actually come in the day to day, where I'll ping my memory banks and be like, oh yeah, I remember that, cool. And then I'll have an actual lawyer, I'll have my brother who's a lawyer check it and go, yeah, you did this right, or no, this sucks, let's do this again.
Yeah.
You can't send this out to anyone the way it looks right now, please.
What
don't
size orange jumpsuit would you like?
So bounced out of there, came back home. I had a connection to a tremendous job working in a corporate landscape, and what was at one point going to be an internship with like the legal side of things. They were like, hey, well, that didn't pan out, we would still like to have you on hand, on staff, you'll get to learn. They plugged me right in. Awesome, here you go. So I worked in a corporate lens for a couple of years, corporate world, kind of got MBA without being an MBA, kind of that real world training, real world experience, put my business acumen was about the size of my pinky at the time. And to plug in there, it was like, all right, holy shit, here you go. So again, just another layer of learning. It's kind of like compounded interest. It was just compounding knowledge on me as I went. Couple years into that, I was like, awesome, but I still wanted to do education. Went out to Kansas City, Missouri. I worked at a private school out there.
Okay, private school. I'm like, what brings you? Yeah, that's sort of random. Like
that
barbecue, Aaron, barbecue. Yeah.
Okay.
That little nugget of just the knowledge that at a young age, knowing that education and working with people and teaching was something that I loved it. I was good at it. It was kind of a gift in that way, to understand what the passion was that I had, and then being able to apply that. Because I mean, really, we're teaching all day, every day. Even if you're showing someone a house, you're teaching them nuances of how to go through that process. And so this was in the formal set. It was like that itch of I gotta get back there. I gotta get back to teaching. I gotta get back into that world. Applied to a few different private schools, and Kansas City was the one that was like, it was different. Granted, it wasn't Florida or Colorado or California or some of the other places that popped up their heads during that process. But KC was one that at the time, on day one, was like, wow, at 24, 25 years old, this is a place where I could learn and grow. I think the median age of that city was and still is like 26 years old, something like that. So it was cool. Got to connect a lot with Kansas City Chiefs administrators, players, Royals administrators, players who had their young ones in the school. I worked in basically what this all again compounds onto. I taught English to 5th grade, and then I taught public speaking to the high school students. And so then did that for a while. Had the short version, what I'll say is I had a health scare, came back home. That company actually was like, we didn't want you to leave in the first place. Welcome back, come on.
Yeah.
And within just a couple of years, I was like, wanted to do something on my own. You know, it had that little bit of an itch. I always looked at it with the health scare in mind, with just everything that I was learning, and young enough where it's like, if I don't try it, you don't know what it's going to be, right? If you don't ask, the answer is always no. And I had my younger brother was applying to colleges at the time, and as he was, or probably even a couple years before that, 1 to 2 years even before that, and had some questions, and was a hardworking student who, you know, every year had gotten better and better and better, was a great football player who, for whatever reason, just didn't get the exposure or the visibility that he was looking for on both sides of the spectrum, right? So on the football side, if, you know, he was just a tick off, a hair off being the height that they were looking for, a pound off of the weight that they were looking for, quite literally, they would kind of move past him if they only saw him on paper, right? If it was just apples to apples, first name, last name compared to 1,000 others, certain coaches or programs would be looking for those things. And if you didn't meet that box and check off those criteria, they move along. On the academic side, again, he was a guy that worked his butt off. Super proud of himself. I'm super proud of him. And, you know, again, hope he sees this, but he was a guy that, you know, early in his career, struggled with some things and was able to work and really challenge himself, get organized, find what his passions were academically. But then colleges kind of missed the boat. They were kind of half in, half out, weren't sure where he wanted to go, et cetera. Was able to put the two together, and without knowing it at the time, he really was my first client of LAC however many years ago. And in the end of that, he ended up getting offers from 4 or 5 different schools. He ended up going to a school that he loved, and then he went off on his own path and did his own thing. And fast forward a year or two even after that, in 2013, officially put pen to paper, generated the LLC, put it all together, and said, you know, let's do it. This is a passion project. It was something that, again, all of those parts and pieces, move as they might, they all came together where it was like, let's just try it. Let's see what happens. And it all has kind of created this ecosystem and this machine of not just me and the folks that work with me, but now really a whole network of folks and professionals in the education space and the training space and the athletic recruiting space that all come together to help students and families optimize the whole process. And it's been, sometimes it's hard for me to even keep up with it because we go through changes even during COVID, even during last year. We're changing and adding things to our scope of services and adding the way in which we communicate and connect with coaches. It's like every 2-3 months, something new is added on in a positive and really awesome progression. And hopefully we can just keep doing that over the next few months and years.
Yeah. So, well, my brother-in-law is a professional coach, and my husband played college football. And we talk a lot about this all the time, just the sort of the process. I was not a college athlete. I played sports through high school, but didn't play in college. And so the things that my husband experienced, right? Like getting recruited to play football, and then now it's 20 years later, the way that industry has changed, right? The way that players are identified and the relationships that need to be in your world. You could be a really talented athlete if your coaches don't necessarily, and your teachers don't have the right relationships. People might not even know that you exist, right? So you might not get the same level of opportunity. So it's pretty neat how your winding road brought you to this place where you're part of this journey for kids. So how many kids have you placed like over the years?
Oh boy.
We didn't tell him it'd be math, but go ahead.
I know.
Come on.
Math test. Go.
In some way, shape, or form. So whether it's soup to
Yeah.
nuts, the whole process from a junior through senior year. Some cases maybe we're just doing interviews or just doing setting up coordinating of their unofficial, official visits, things like that. It's around it's over 700. So it's about 100. We average now between 100 and 125, 130 students in a year.
That's
just
amazing.
To make sure that they're, checking off all the boxes. So
Sure.
I would say on average, and I don't know the exact number, but it's probably closer to 800. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. I was an SAT tutor like years ago, and I tutored like a few kids on their SATs, and I thought it was like the best thing in the world. I'm like, I got these 4 kids to get their scores higher, right? Like, I can't even imagine.
Chad's got a bus of
kids.
800. He's like, hold my beer.
Yeah, seriously, 800 kids.
Yeah,
what?
that's fine.
I think you know what helps my numbers though a little bit, or our numbers a little bit over time is, and you heard me say that some of the growth and development and kind of this created or lack thereof path is something I never anticipated 7 years ago, which was at that time it would be reaching out to coaches, to schools, advocating for these players and their parents. And there, especially 7 years ago, there was this stigma to, this guy, LAC or whomever it was, pick even a coach. Sometimes it was, he's basically selling something, or he's just going to give me a disc, or, back then, or a link with some huddle highlights. And it's the same old stuff I can get online. We don't need that. But in time, the coaches realized that even when it was just me, it was, look, I'm trying to do the right thing for these young folks to make sure that they're not just going to any fly-by-night school. I'm not just, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's a place that really fits them for all of these reasons.
Yeah.
We didn't just pick you because you're on Saturday afternoons and he goes, oh, I want to go to there because of that. We've done our homework, coach. We've checked off all these boxes. We've gone upside down, backwards, left, right, center, you name it. We have every angle covered except the connection for you to our student, which, oh, by the way, I'm giving the student all the tools, all the utility he or she needs in order to do that and optimize that process. But I'm not going to do it for them. I've already gone to college. Yeah. I don't need to do that again. So when the coaches started to pick up on that and kind of the understanding, or call it even the brand, if you will, that LAC was working with guys and girls who really wanted to push themselves, do it the right way, and be good people as a whole. Yeah. Student side, athlete side, just being a good person and really, put value into the campus and into the community and into the program. All of a sudden that shifted, where then 2 things started to happen. The college coaches then started to connect with us. The first year they were, meh, forget it. We don't need to talk to you. A couple years later, it was,
we got this. We got
this.
Yeah.
we just had a wide receiver that tore up his ACL. He's going to be a red shirt, for his injury. Do you have wide receivers? We need some left wings. We need some goalies. We need some keepers for soccer. So then that was a shift, a big time shift. And then just in the last 3-4 years, we started connecting with high schools, to where then, and that's why I say the numbers get a little easier, where I'm not just talking one-to-one with a student, but now we're able to work with entire schools. So entire football teams, maybe not all X number, 40, 50, 60 guys come on board at once, but we're able to connect and communicate, and we're there as a resource, which works out perfectly in the world we're in now, even pre-COVID. Unfortunately, and I don't think it's happened in New Hampshire or Connecticut all that much, but there are a lot of states and a lot of locations where schools, public schools in particular, are getting to a place where they're questioning their budgets. And it's like, well, what do we cut out? We'll cut out art, cut out music, we'll cut out parts of STEM. That's unfortunate, but we got to do it. And a big thing that was getting cut out was the college counseling and the guidance counseling. And so we figured a way to where, with schools, that as our brand has grown, as our name has grown, as I've even made phone calls and connected with schools, to where they're like, hey, we'll just white label you guys under our program, or under our school, excuse me. And we'll allow that layer of connectivity, as not a stand-in, certainly not, but as a supplement, and as, again, just ultimately as a resource to where, hey, you got questions, we have answers. And so that's where the number definitely shifts when you throw that into the mix.
Yeah, I want to go deeper into like your process, and I know we don't have enough time for your whole process, but to have you highlight your process, what's fascinating is if you think about, because everybody's kid is Hercules. Like as soon as they start playing sports, like my kid's going pro, right? Like, and I joke, my wife is a dance mom. She's like on the sideline with the eye black at all the lacrosse games, dipping Kodiak. I'm in the car watching Netflix. It's a longer story. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
That aside,
That's
well, now with
Saturday
COVID
night right now.
now with COVID, you can only typically have one parent in the facility, or even at the field,
or
even
none.
open air, or none. Right. So with that being said, the drop off has to be precipitous from the kids that go from junior league through high school to college. Like, a lot of kids that finished their senior year, which was heartbreaking this year to watch a lot of kids get ripped, out of spring sports in their senior year. That's the last time they'll play organized sports. Right.
Correct.
And then the kids that do get invited or walk on or get scholarship, God bless them, into the universities, and then to go pro after that. So what do you feel is the biggest misconception that you're seeing with even the student athlete or the parents that endeavor to have their kid be, playing on Sundays eventually?
Well, I think what that boils down to is just the understanding that student athlete is student first. And student as athlete, and then kind of, as I said before, as person. It's your quality of life. And sometimes 14, 15, 16, they may not wrap their heads around that, but they know what they like. They know what they're passionate about. They know what makes them tick. And sure, sometimes being on the field or being on the ice or the court is what makes them tick. But to answer your question in a few different ways, first and foremost, we'll kind of chip away at expectations and do it in such a way where it's like, hey, man, hey, lady, you're not going to be walking on the court at Cameron Indoor anytime soon because of X, Y, and Z. But here's the places where we and ultimately working with them so that you're giving them the power, you're giving them the understanding, you're giving them all the information that they need to where you're not poo-pooing it per se, but they go, oh shit, yeah, that's why this does work for me. Okay. And sometimes it's as simple as, in that kind of comparison mode, it's as simple as, here's the guys or girls in your conference or in your league that you're playing against on a regular basis. It's nothing against you, but let's look at the bigger picture now. And you go from the puddle to the little pool, the pool to the pond to the lake to the ocean. And when you start to show them that, and it's, again, none of it sounds almost haphazard the way I say it, but it's not to be negative. It's constructive in the sense of to move past some of those, while it's bittersweet, it's allowing you as the athlete to focus on the places that mean the most to you. Knowing that if I get to play basketball, great. If I'm going to get a great education, that's even better. And here's why. Because you can go focus on engineering, because you can go focus on whatever, because your grandparents are down in the Carolinas and now you get to be near them and see them on occasion. So, it's kind of this delicate dance of giving them the understanding of, sure, what life is like, but then working hard to paint a picture of what the next steps are and can be, and then allowing them to really take hold of their passions, of who they are, and it's tough sometimes with guys and girls that age, but to have them recognize, this is who I am, this is what makes me work outside of sports, and boom, off they go. And when we work as closely as we do with these students, we're able to then really build a relationship with them so that there is a confidence and a comfort. So you can have those really tough discussions, those ones that are critiquing different things, those ones that are saying, hey, and I'll never say no, right? Even with a student who's not an athlete, someone who just wants to apply to Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Stanford, whatever, if that's what you absolutely want to do, you're driving the ship. Like you heard me say before, I went to college, you're driving the ship. We will do everything in our power to give you the keys to get you there. So long as you have all of these other places that are just as fantastic for you. And we want it to be a good problem to have. good problem to have. Meaning,
Right.
we want you to get into 4 of these, and then you go, oh shit, now I got to make a choice.
Yeah. Now you got to pick one. Yeah. Worst problem
Now-
ever. Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, what? And of course, with the pandemic, then it's like, well, I didn't get to see it yet, so
Yeah.
But it's working with 100 to 120, 130 students in a year really allows me and us to start to build a layer of connectivity with some of these students and these families, to where, I mean, even between now and tonight, I'll probably get, I don't know, 10 to 12 text messages from different students.
Right.
Everything from, hey, I worked on that essay we talked about, to my girlfriend just broke up with me. What do I do? And, it's the consultant, and it's the entrepreneurial side of things and the educator side. But there's a lot of this where it's built a relationship where they just need that outlet. It's no offense to mom and dad. It just gives somebody a third party to talk to, who's going to give them advice, or, sometimes just to listen to them vent. And it comes down to just communicating in all facets, whether it's to answer your question, whether it's looking at what they're doing next, whether it's COVID as a whole. We've been telling students is, if you thought you were good at communicating before, then 10x it.
Yeah, for sure.
Put it on steroids.
Right.
Ask a lot of questions. Reach out to everybody you know. Think openly, and ultimately communicate with yourself.
Right.
Know what you want. Know what makes you tick, and have, in some ways, have those hard conversations with yourself so that you can figure what comes next.
I love that you made the point about, the ego check for the student athlete, and they're talking about, I'm the best left wing in Schenectady. That's great, Tommy. So, and we're talking about going to like the next level and playing hockey at, pick one, Rensselaer, anywhere, right? Any one of those.
And hockey is its own ball of wax anyway, because then you throw in juniors, you throw in repeat PGs and all that stuff.
So, and like, to your point, you get to, when you look at the competition in the NFL, you think every player on the field was the best kid at their university. And most of them played in Alabama, right? Like whatever, like everybody on that team, except for the one kid from Clemson, went to Alabama, right? And they were all the best person on that team. So the competition just gets so out of hand. And I always remember thinking, as we were growing up and, in Massachusetts, like your class president, the number one student in your class is going to Harvard. You know what he or she, when they get to Harvard, they're just another kid at Harvard, right? You're the wicked smartest kid in this room. And then there's like 15 more in the next room. And after that. So that, I thought it was really funny that you brought that up. I also do appreciate, my son is involved with lacrosse, and Erin's kids play sports. My son playing lacrosse at the town level, and he is at Cole Brown. And of course that's getting jacked up just because of COVID. We identified pretty early that we wanted him to play on a club team as well. So he plays with the Hooligans in New Hampshire. It's run by Sean Houlihan, who carries a lot of the same tenets that you do, like the fit. It's not about making sure that he goes to the best lacrosse school. And really, Aiden's on a tipping point right now, because Catholic University is really probably his top choice right now. We also know that Utah, his mom wants a second home in Utah. I don't know if she's bringing me. And then the other thing is,
this is news. I haven't heard this.
Well, because they started a lacrosse program.
Oh.
I also I think, honestly, for him, the fit, and I'm speaking for him because he's not here. I think the fit for him would be go to the school that's really going to set up his future, because honestly, and I want to get to this point of the conversation too, there's not a lot of money in lacrosse. Even the number one kid going to Duke, like the full ride at Duke, like there's going to be one of those this year, and I know you could speak to this better, but like, that's what we've heard from Sean and other people in the lacrosse, arena, that there's not a lot of money there. And we knew that. So I want him to go to the school that's going to suit his academic and his future business needs. And then where he could, at the very least, at least walk on or play. And if he doesn't, I don't think that's an end all be all for him, and student athlete is so important. I think a lot of universities, they have a bunch of jocks on the field, and then like their second semester, their senior year is like, class number 1 on Monday is stay out of jail. Class number 2 on Tuesday is basket weaving, and class number 3 is stay out of jail. Right. And then there's other schools where it's, they're actual student athletes, and that's important. And that must be a grind for you too, because some kids probably show up on your doorstep looking for their new iPhone, their Air Force Ones, and their gold chain. Right. They want to be the next big thing.
That happens a lot, for
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely, it happens a lot. And again, you just taper them down to what fits them.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not even, well, the hardest thing of why they question it and why they're kind of confused by it is just because they don't know themselves. They've never had someone sit them down and review it and say, okay, here's your direction and here's why. The flip to that whole thought process too, or I mean, not the flip, but just the added thought process is, once you go to a school, it's all in what you make it. Just like anything else in life, it's all 100% in what you put into it. And so, the Super Bowl come up is a great example. They always, what's today? Today's Wednesday. By like Friday, if it hasn't come out already, somebody will put out the report of here's the colleges that all these guys went to. Check it out. And sure, a lot of them are big D1 FBS, so the bowl subdivision.
Yep.
Rising, sure, awesome. But what's always surprising to people is there's going to be half, sometimes more than half, depends on the year, that are Division II, Division III, which is some
Bemidji
guys.
State, great school.
It's kind of mind blowing. Mount Union in Ohio, who's had some phenomenal pro athletes come out of, and that I always hang my hat on that to kind of point to that and go, see, it's all in what you make it.
Yep.
And it comes, because you're going to have your chances. You can be a big fish in a small pond, but you got to be able to get there first and foremost. If that's important, if playing a sport, say football, if that's important to you, then do what you can to get on the field somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Chisel away, get to where you think, all right, cool, I'm here, I'm in a safety zone, or even as a safety, as people will refer to it, right, when they're looking at their admissions.
Sure.
And then build up from there.
Yep.
And if that's the love of your life is to be on the football field, if you get to that spot, you can apply everything you learned and you shine, you may get an opportunity to go play at the next level.
Right. Yeah. Because Belichick loves Kent State and Hofstra. Right. Belichick's going to recruit. If you're working at a grocery store, if you're at Roach's right now, he may grab you out of the aisle. Right?
He's looking for the next Tom Brady.
Yes. Our next quarterback might be coming from Roach's. Yes. Yeah. Roach Brothers, I should say.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I had this conversation with my sister the other day, literally like the reason we put kids into youth sports, I hope, is not with the intention that they're going to play professionally at some point, right? I coach 10, well, right now we have 8 girls and we're all in quarantine right now because of COVID. But I coach basketball and I have for years. And I think that
when she stands up, Chad, she's 6'8", just so you know. Go ahead.
I'm not. I didn't even play basketball. I understand the game, and I'm a pretty good coach around how to be on a team and get your head where it needs to be, all that stuff. My other coach actually teaches the technicals of the game. I teach how to be an athlete, and how to be a team member and all that stuff. Yeah. But regardless, those girls are there to learn how to be a teammate, how to be a good person, how to deal with 100%. Adversity, right? Like I feel like the head game is so important, and it, especially if you're living in a situation where you're not ever in danger of not being able to eat. Your home is secure. Like if you live a very cushy life, sports is a great way to have some adversity thrown at you. Like when I was a teacher, I was a school teacher, and my good friend's a counselor. We'd be like, every now and then, like, we're just throwing some stuff at you guys because your lives are too easy, right? Like we're going to mess with you a little because you need to figure out how to deal with hard things, because grown up real life has a lot of hard stuff in it. And sports is a great way to learn that. So I'm hoping that people are not just putting their kids in like, I'm going to get a scholarship and I'm going to be a professional athlete. Like there's so much more to being an athlete than that.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of parents live vicariously through their kids. I mean, I'm sure Chad sees that 3 times.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. Like, do you see that? Like where parents are like, I mean, I know I've had kids when I tutored SAT and I'd be like, she's struggling. Like, why are we pushing her to this school that she's going to be really unhappy at, right? Because
Right.
the expectations are not in alignment with who your kid is. Yeah.
Yeah. How often do you have the wellness check where you're like looking at the student athlete and you're like, if you're nervous, blink twice, Tim, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Are you in a room and you clearly know that dad wants him to go to Bama? He doesn't want to go to Bama or something like that?
There's, man, I'm going to unbox that for a second. So as far as parents living vicariously through their kids, or as far as the, ooh, little Johnny's going to go pro tomorrow, forget college. He's just going to get drafted at 14. That number, I will say that number's come down. I mean, it's come down certainly in the last 7 years that I've been doing this officially. It's come down even from when I was in college and just after. And I think that there's something about the world we live in with all the information and with everything that gets thrown around where, if highlights are shared, or if various insights to recruiting Clemson and Dabo's got X guys coming in and here's their numbers. Of course, the internet's a gift and a curse. It's good for a lot of things. It's shitty for others. But it's brought us together. Hey, we're here.
Yeah.
But I think what it's done in time, and I don't know this with certainty, but it would make a whole heck of a lot of sense, is where people are like, oh shit, yeah, that may not happen. Right. Yeah. They have the pictures of, all those, the Alabama running backs or the wide receivers who are phenomenal skill players. They're beasts physically, really just at the top of their games from a football perspective.
Sure.
And then guys get to see that and in comparison and just go, oh wait, maybe. And they kind of check themselves off of that ledge, which is kind of good. And again, I'm seeing more and more of that even just in the last 5 to 7 years, because all of that information is available to them.
Yeah.
And again, cool. My biggest thing is I never want to completely poo-poo or have a young man or a young lady be negative about a process, because again, if you want to still have some of those dream schools and those aspirations and that stuff to shoot for, but you want to do it in a coherent and kind of a cognitive way where it makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. And knowing that there's going to be work involved, and as a student and as an athlete. And, probably the biggest thing I tell all my students is that being a student athlete, D1 to D3, NAIA, you name it, it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
You will get up at 5:30 in the morning. You will go to practice.
Schedule. Yes.
You will eat breakfast with the team, not when you want to.
Yeah.
With them. You will go to study hall. You will go to English, math, science.
You're not the average college student. Correct.
And so, to have a set of those reach schools, which even if they're not student athletes, students themselves will have their reach schools, right? The ones that are challenging to them, that they that North Star, or those set of North Stars that they want to aim for. But to do it in such a way where there's logic behind it, and then you're able to drive them and develop them as people to where it's like, yep, cool. If I get the chance, I promise you, Mr. D, I'm going to crush it. I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to work my butt off. And then too, what's good for me come away from that is they're not just thinking it's going to flip a light switch and they're going to be there on draft day in the 4th round. There's blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of all of the above that are going to go into what this next couple years for me looks like. And then all of those things considered in time, and it kind of comes full circle. What I said is they recognize then is, no, I got to go to a place that really will allow me to grow as a person, grow as an athlete, grow as a student, and then I'll get my shot. And I'm doing it in the best way for me. Yeah. The other side of that mindset and kind of unboxing that is in COVID with, some of the changes, well, not some, all of the changes that are happening. I mean, I think the recruiting outlook on things changes every 48 to 72 hours.
Yep.
And I get a lot of reports from, and Tim, I think I mentioned the other day, I get reports from like Ohio State on some of the COVID stuff, or I'm right down the street from Quinnipiac. And so I'll see a lot of the things coming out of there. The biggest thing above all of that is the world in which student athletes aren't able to play sports.
Right.
And forget college, forget what comes next. Yeah. And this is probably a whole separate conversation, but just the depression and the fact that they can't see their friends and some of the stuff you were talking about, Aaron, the camaraderie is not there, the leadership isn't there, the working together isn't there. And that's the part that, you know, we're all kind of working through even to this day. Forget college, just in the day to day. That's the stuff where I have seen more and more students who talked to a student late last night. You know, oh, all I did, Mr. D, for football was 7-on-7. And he started getting upset on the phone. 7-on-7, you did something, man.
Right.
You got on the field when other guys and girls couldn't.
Right.
Oh, but it wasn't what I anticipated. And then the tears start to come because then which is a good segue into, oh, but I'm not going to get recruited now. Coaches aren't going to see me. And we start talking about the different tactics and the different ways to be seen. And sure, that's very next level stuff of, oh, how do I get there? But it's a couple times a day, and it's unfortunate where it's like, I'm upset because I can't play the sport I love. And for some of them, it's not about the sport per se. It's just an outlet and an opportunity to get along with their friends.
Yeah.
That's pains me very much so.
Yeah. Well, and they didn't get, so my oldest plays basketball in Rose Crew, and like, she didn't even have a crew season, but there was no, like in your mind, like, oh, there's not going to be a crew season, right? Or my season, there's not going to be, this is my last time playing basketball. Like there was, and that's what I think about for older players, right? Like it just was over. Like there was, right? It's not like when you're, you know, if you're a senior or you're going into your senior year, you're like, I'm going to really pay attention this season because this is my last season with my team and I'm really going to be present, right? These kids didn't get that opportunity. And that's the, I think that's the thing that's so heartbreaking about it, is just that they, you know, it's a mourning, it's a sudden loss, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great, it is a morning. I might borrow that, steal that from
It's
you. No, but
yours.
that is a great way to consider it. And not just sports, but everything, you know, seniors not going to proms and not having their senior weeks, which I don't even remember. Like, I don't think it made a dent in what I did. But I know that means a lot to kids. Right. And maybe as juniors, they see what, you know, senior skip week or whatever, every school call it something different, or prom or all that. They look
called
forward
it junior
to that.
skip year, but anyway, yeah.
Cool, right.
The stay home with your mom year, like,
I'm gonna play hooky all 365 days this year. Don't worry about it.
It was close. It was Check with Cheryl Lindsay. She'll tell you the story. Yeah.
So that's again, that's been the toughest, and we do see more and more of that. There's an added wrinkle now, just in the last, really from the fall to now, where there's a silver lining for some of the college athletes, where conditions to it, they're allowed to rework their eligibility so that they can have that senior year. I was going to ask
you about that.
Right. And I'll just give it the blanket statement because there's data and numbers and checking off varying aspects of why and how, and does this work? There are in varying ways and a multitude of schools, this option of, you can stick around. The other thing that's done is not a direct playoff of that, but the transfer portal. So then it's opening up different schools where, a guy's or a girl's at Michigan and she wants to transfer, and now she's at Auburn for whatever reason, maybe closer to home, maybe they thought about going to grad school there anyway, and so it just was a shift that made sense. So that's great at its core, and that's a relief for some of the seniors and some of the juniors that will be walking into those roles in the coming months. But what it's done is, and we're just touching the iceberg. We, rhetorically speaking, the whole sports and recruiting world, we're just at the tip of the iceberg as far as what that's doing to the high school students, because now it's a trickle down effect.
Right.
This roster now, like tennis teams may only have 2 to 3 spots anyway.
That's
in a
my
given
husband
year
was
that's
talking
open.
about that the other day.
Yeah. And now everybody's waiting for the next train.
Yep.
And so now, the train is just getting botched completely. It's people are waiting all around the station, and people are missing their trains in essence because of the way this is getting jammed up. And so that's tough now. And again, a lot of the ways in which we're working with our students is again, it comes down to communicating at the highest level. That's one of the biggest changes. The second one is the lack of practices, lack of games, lack of showcases, lack of combines, lack of attention. And then the third one, which is if they're not practicing and playing, a lot of them kind of miss out on it anyway, but a lot of the recruiting dates are changing as well. So what's an active recruiting period? What's a dead period? What's a quiet period? And the NCAA, especially at the height of the pandemic, I like to think we're on the back end of the pandemic.
Oh my God,
coming
please.
coming from a guy that had COVID, still it's
yeah, we haven't even gone there yet. Yeah.
It's still kicking around.
I know this somewhere. Is, by the way, everyone, this is Chad at 90%. So we're going to have you back when you're at 102. It's going to be great. Yeah.
This is, I've just going to say, this has gone, I think, pretty well considering how I feel. Sure. Not going to lie to you. Sure. Thanks for that, Tim. No, but where was I even going with that now? Oh, that just those dates and the accessibility and the availability of coaches and recruiters and coordinators to communicate with students has been so jumbled. I made the comment before where things seem to change on the daily. That's probably the biggest marker is for different schools, programs, divisions, things are shifting with the wind. And yeah, for safety's sake, at the height of, that's where I was going, at the height of COVID, that's where it was for safety's sake. You know, certain states you couldn't go into. The CDC said no, different states are putting their walls up and their guard up, fine. But a lot of that just meant that recruiting happened almost minimal. And it was all virtual, all recorded, all communicating over the web, which is fantastic. But a lot of students were like, what the hell? And a lot of coaches who maybe around the older generation were then, what the hell? Yeah. So both sides didn't really know. And so there's been a lot of, the silver lining in that is I think that there's an ease of use now in terms of some of the communications. Again, we've worked with some of our student athletes on 2 or 3 different tactics to take to kind of showcase themselves in a different light.
Yep.
And the coaches are kind of, it's growing on them a little bit. Yeah. Especially the schools with the lesser budgets, who can't travel the country or go to different showcases, to now have Zoom calls and have, you know, Google Meets and all those types of connections with guys and girls, even before they step on a plane or on a bus to go visit who knows who.
Yeah.
This is affording them that option to really spread their wings, cast a wide net, see what's out there, connect, communicate, and then have a more finite understanding of who they're looking for and then who they're talking to, which then they can travel out to go see.
It's going to be a whole cottage industry for someone, maybe even yourself, to start to put together these production packages for these kids to showcase themselves to the coaches remotely, right? And I'm thinking this week, God bless Gronk, only Gronk would do this, that the news hit that the Bucks in the offseason were asking him to send in his sprints remotely. So what he would do, because he's Gronk, he would do all of his sprint work in one day and just change his t-shirt and then invariably send in the new video over the course of the week. So it looked like he was doing it on a different day, which if somebody in the IT department in Tampa Bay was smart enough, they would look at there's data like on the back of those videos that would have a timestamp, but like clearly, you know, if you've met Bruce Arians, not that smart. There, I said it. Although I still want them to win because I don't like Patrick Mahomes. We don't have time. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I knew when you said KC, so I know that you're a Chiefs fan already. So sorry. Yeah, yes, I don't want that to happen. Go ahead.
No, but I still like if we just think about just Gronk playing with the tapes, right?
If he's smart enough to do it, manipulated the system.
I mean, honestly, as a coach of like a local kids team, my kids are in such bad shape. Honestly, like how many kids are not doing the workouts that they would have been doing, and like that whole compound effect of like now you have so much ground to make up because you haven't been working out at this level.
Oh yeah.
You know, I had kids that played on travel teams 6 days a week that haven't been doing that. And now I'm like, oh, we're going to have to run them. Like, girls, you got to run because you can't make it through an 8-minute quarter. Like, and I'm like, if this is happening to my 12-year-olds, what's happening to these older athletes that are not able to get into the gym? And what is that going to do to their eligibility? What's going to happen to them when they get there and they're not ready to play? Like, these are the things that we talk about in my house.
And for them too, forget even playing. It's just getting there. It's being able to step foot, if it's volleyball, on the court, on the grass, on the field. And so when we're somewhere along the early stages of our onboarding process, so when we know that the student athlete is gonna join, gonna sign on, essentially become part of our client roster, we'll start talking about different ways. And it's great for the podcast. It's great when people watch this and have playback and go, oh, what did he say about that? Where we have 3 different types of video that we're looking for these guys and girls to put forth. And we'll ask, oftentimes it's me, what type of playing shape are you in? What type of training are you doing? What type of work are you putting in the gym, in your backyard, irregardless of the snow, in your basement? What are you doing to prepare yourself? And it goes back to what I said, where if you're going to do this and take it seriously, it becomes a job, right? If it's your goal and your dream and you're telling me, oh, Mr. D, I'm going to go to the NFL someday, show me, show yourself.
Cool.
Right. And so what we'll do is, from something that we had done, I mean, I've asked for these types of videos 5 years running, 6 years running, but it's been a huge, huge benefit just in the last 6 to 10 months, because coaches will call us and go, this was phenomenal. Thank you for this. It helped us to really get to understand who he or she is and to see a little bit more that we wouldn't have otherwise seen. So the first thing is, so in football, it's a huddle highlight. You can do this for basketball, volleyball, different things like that. Essentially, it's the highlight reel, right? And so the young man just yesterday, I only have 7-on-7. I have 2 games. Again, that's 2 better than somebody else has, right?
Yeah.
So package that up. Let's go. The second thing is, and why we talk about, hey, if you're going to do this and you're serious about it, get into training. Really, we say, oh, it'll be a full-time job in college.
Yeah.
And you're going to make it maybe a full-time job. That's your goal. That's your dream, right? In the pros, if and when, given the minuscule percentage, take that as it is right now. Take it that it's your job right now. Especially in COVID, you're doing remote work in school. Your day ends on a Wednesday at 1:30. You shut off your computer. You're done with Zoom. Go work out. Why? Because then that second video is training videos, whether it's mom or dad, a sibling, a workout partner, of course, COVID safe, masks on and 6 feet distance. But a lot of, every sport will have a set of skills that coaches are looking for, that they'd be looking for on those game tape, that now they can look at in the training tape.
Yeah.
So for football players, we have a lot of the guys basically mimic what an NFL combine or what a college combine would look like.
My favorite thing to watch.
Bench, squats.
It is.
For some,
it
it
is.
is.
Combines. I love the combine. I like when Rich Eisen always does he always does his run in the combine. Is always
yeah, he does.
Yeah.
But to take those attributes of those events, of those showcases, and okay, so you can't go to a showcase. So Wesleyan University here in Connecticut does a showcase and a camp every May. That didn't end. So a lot of the guys that we had on our roster who were going to do that, we're like,
sure,
go do those same things just in your backyard with mom and dad. I'll drive to wherever you are and we'll just go do it.
Yeah.
Core work, footwork, strength, speed, stamina, all of that stuff. Again, you're not just throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks, but putting it together in a way that's cohesive and makes sense, and is not just showing, of course you want to show your best, but showing that you're demonstrating an interest of, heck yes, this is what I want to do. This is how serious I am about it. Here you go. That's video number 2. And then the third one, which a lot of folks think I'm crazy when I say it, but coaches love it and schools love it, and especially the administrative admissions offices love it, is have somebody take their phone and film themselves. Hi, my name is Chad. I'm interested in you going to your school. Yes, as a football player. Yes, as a volleyball player. Yes, as a basketball player. But I know that you have a fantastic engineering department,
Right.
X, Y, and Z. I love to intern with so-and-so. I want to learn under this professor. And that's providing a ton of value. Sure, it's providing a ton of value to the school, to the coach, the administrator, to the admissions team, because then they see like, holy shit, yeah, this
This
guy,
kid knows
girl
more
has,
about us than just the football team.
he's
Right.
thought it out. They've done their homework.
Yeah.
But then there's value in that for the student as well, because just in going through that practice, they learn again, comes back around, is this really a fit for you?
Right.
Right.
And that's something that colleges weren't used to seeing it until the last, I don't know, year or so. But we've had our students do that and, you know, push that out a lot. Those 3 bits of film, if you will, are hugely valuable in these days, because it's just layers of attention that they wouldn't have otherwise had. And instead of sitting back on the heels and going, oh shit, I don't know what to do,
Yeah.
let's figure it out. Here's a couple ways
Yeah.
you can do it.
It's
Yeah.
something you can take action on, which is, you
For
know, I
sure.
think right now that's the big thing, right? We feel like there's so much we can't take action on. So to have actual things that we can do for the future is probably pretty empowering for the kids, I would think.
Well, and it's
Absolutely,
comprehensive.
absolutely.
It's comprehensive too, because if you get that, like the kid that fights his way onto the field, he or she gets onto the field and they start, and they, in the back of their mind, they're like, don't really love the campus. They don't really have my major, and I'm starting. They're going to grow weary of that pretty quick, especially especially right now, if a kid was in the wrong school system, or chose the wrong university, or thought they were making the right choice, and then COVID strips them of sports.
Right.
You
Right.
find out pretty quick, like, oh, this wasn't my jam, you know? And
Mhm.
that's going to be a struggle. So you touched upon earlier, Chad, that, you know, you do help kids just scholastically approach universities. What would you say the mix is for you? In the course of a year, how many student athletes do you work with, or student athletes do you work with? And what would you say is the mix of that group? How many are there just simply scholastically pursuing the university?
It depends on the year, but it's about 60-40 or 70-30.
Wow.
More often than not, 70-30, where 70% are the athlete side of things.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep.
And what would you say is the sport that you probably lean into the most? It ends up on your plate the most.
Oh goodness. Again, it depends on the year. So like this year, well, this academic year, I can't say this year. It's a week or a month and 3 days, so forget that. But this academic year has been predominantly men's and women's soccer, men's and women's basketball, and football. So football always tends to come back around.
Sure.
We've had a stack of baseball players. I was a hockey player myself. In and around the state of Connecticut, I'll be able to connect with a lot of coaches and players who, you know, that it kind of ebbs and flows. You know, some years there's a ton of them for whatever reason, and then others not so much. So this year, again, it's always a mix, but a lot of soccer players this year.
You've offered so much information today. I guess, you know, if I'm a student athlete or I'm a parent, and I get to ask young Chad Dorman, and now this Chad Dorman, you know, don't do that. Like, what is your advice on the thing that they're maybe about to do, because you know that they're just stepping into this conversation? Don't do that. Like, what would you tell that young family with the young student athlete that's starting to pursue this conversation? One of the most common pitfalls you see families run into that they could avoid.
I would say to not limit yourself, and to not put yourself, not to pigeonhole yourself, right? Because again, yeah, you want to find the places that fit you best, but to open up your eyes and open up your experience to different schools that fit you. And so as an athlete, you heard me say, like, just because they're not playing on Saturday afternoon doesn't mean it's not a spot for you.
Yeah.
I get it. You know, you may want to be in New England, but there may be a school in the South that works for you for whatever reason. And not just with schools, but with other things in general. You know, I later in life started learning, well, even business, right? MBA just on the fly, or law school for a year in and out, where I wish, and my parents did this, and I'm sure I was like, yeah, no, dragged my feet all day long, but I should have tried different things and kind of tested everything and just kind of bounced around as a younger guy. Yeah, I had hockey. That was my winter. Done. End of story. But
Yeah.
other sports or other things in the arts, I should have definitely tried. So just to really go into life, or go into every day, every week, every month, eyes wide open, and accepting of what is out there, try new things, and encourage yourself to do just that and live.
Yeah, I think, Aaron and I talk about it quite a bit. I think that everything going on with COVID is going to change the course of the traditional journey for a student. I think people are going to start to explore, like you talked about earlier, and you didn't use the term necessarily, but like you did some clerking, obviously. You said you got some massive experience doing some stuff, in your, in what you were studying at school at the same time. That was invaluable to you when it was outside of the classroom, and taking those opportunities, to your point of getting that, and this is, kids just don't want to do it anymore. As I was coming up, and one of my past careers in radio, interning is just, it is what it is. It's $0.0, but the knowledge that you gain is ridiculous, and the opportunity to work with great people and just literally get arguably maybe even better education from them in your field than you were getting in the classroom.
Right.
It's real world experience, to your point. So,
and even off of that, the networking.
Right.
I mean, networking was something that I didn't even think about until 7 years ago, basically starting the business. And even then, it took me about 2 years to get into a flow of like, wait a minute, I should call these people and connect and looking at different partners and things. So now being able to connect with wellness professionals and nutritionists and all that stuff. But pushing high school students to think about internships and jobs and what comes next, and kind of collecting a network as well is a huge thing that I wish more younger people did, because it'll suit them very, very well as they move forward. They'll always have people or background knowledge or something to lean on, and it'll help them optimize who they are in the future, for sure.
Chad, thank you so much for your time. If somebody wants to get involved in a conversation with you and utilize your expertise, what's the best way to get in contact with you and your team?
They could just email me, Chad at leonardandrew.com, LeonardAndrew.com. That's for those that wonder, because everybody asks me, so I'll say it anyway. That's a cross between my grandfather's name and my dad's name.
I was going to ask. I love that. I love that.
And 7 years ago, it could have been college sports, R Us, Express,
Yeah.
And with that law-ish 1L year background, it kind of had that feel to it, and it just stuck as LAC, in terms of like the brand into it now.
Sure.
But yeah, Chad at leonardandrew.com, and we'll go from there.
I love that it's got that family tie for you, right?
That's awesome.
I always joke with my kids when you're going to school, whose name is on your back, and they're like Lindsay, and I'm like, well, don't forget that's not Daddy's name, that's Grampy's name, right? Like, so always reminding them that they're carrying the weight of generations on their shoulders. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We definitely going to corral you back in, because there's so much more to talk about, and I think this conversation is obviously going to morph over time with the 13th version of the 9th variant of COVID 38 or whatever's coming next. I'm sure as it's affecting all industries, it's definitely going to change what you're doing. Massive value that you bring to the student athlete, and we really appreciate your time. Chad Dorman, leonardandrew.com if you're going to find out more about him, and Chad at leonardandrew.com if you want to track him down and start to move in the right direction for your student athletes, or just your students who want to go to the right university.
Yeah.
Chad, again,
just kiddos that want to go to college, right?
Yeah. I want to be wicked smarter somewhere else, further away from my parents.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.